Recently, I got a video, one of those viral videos that appear in your inbox, and this was a really interesting video because it appeared from several different sources, so it was really going viral. And I looked through the video. It was about this young man and his mom who were called into his teacher's room because he wasn't doing well. He was apparently failing in his subjects, was deemed underperforming and so on and so forth. And it started off with the mother and the teacher sort of scolding him and putting him down. And then this young man stood up and stood up for himself and pointed out the reasons why he wasn't doing well in school. And the gist of the matter was that he very eloquently then stated that the system was not supportive, the things that they were teaching in school were not preparing him for the future, the skill sets that he was gaining wasn't relevant, the textbooks were boring and so on and so forth, and all of which I agree with. But then as I looked through the video again, something didn't quite sit right with me, and here's why. I took the video and I went around asking a lot of young people, and the first response was always that they loved it and they agreed with it. And I can see why. But then when I questioned them a little bit further about who they thought this person who was doing this video up, who was he? Nobody could answer me. Nobody knew his background, nobody knew his qualifications, nobody knew his experience. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure he's a brilliant, intelligent young man. But my point is, nobody knew. And if nobody knows, then my question is, why are we so ready to accept an opinion from a stranger on a video that we have no source about and we have no background about? And it was a really interesting conversation that I then had with some of those people that I showed the video to. And the conclusion from that was that we love videos like this because it validates our own opinions and it validates our feel-good feelings about ourselves. And in this particular instance, it was, for me, it validated the fact that it's not my fault. It's the education system's fault. It's the teacher's fault. It's my mother's fault. It's somebody else's fault, but not mine. And therefore, it's not my fault that I failed. Now, I'm not here to dissect the education system because I too believe that the education system needs reform, that it needs to change, it needs to keep up with the times, and it needs to prepare our students for the future, which they're probably not doing a really brilliant job of right now. So don't get me wrong on that part, I do agree. However, I also think that there are a lot of things that in that video made me feel as though the individuals now don't need to take responsibility for their own growth and their own lives and their own actions. It's interesting to note that when the school system goes wrong, it goes wrong, right? It doesn't prepare people for the future. But it doesn't mean that everything that has happened in the past is wrong. That a school system that was built on hundreds of years of development is now suddenly all wrong? That can't be right. So here's what I think. There are some things in that video that goes really, really well. Preparing for the future, preparing for new skills, preparing for the Industrial Revolution 4.0, preparing for technological advances. Really, really cool. But there are also some things I think are unsaid. And that's where, as an employer, sometimes when I conduct interviews, do I still look for a college degree? To be honest, yes, I do. In the relevant positions, I do. Because a college degree actually doesn't tell me much about your education. A college degree tells me a lot about yourself though. It tells me a lot about the individual's grit, determination, the desire to succeed, and most importantly, the ability to push through and complete things that he or she did not like to do or does not like to do. And that's really important because life's not going to throw everything that you like at you all the time. So when you have something that you don't like, do you push through and complete it well? Or do you say, you know what, they're not engaging me, this is not interesting, it's not my passion, which is a really big thing right now. It's not my passion, it's not something that I like doing, therefore I don't want to do it anymore. Really? The world's going to disappoint you a lot if that's how you think, because we don't get to do what we want all the time. There was one particular clip, particular part of the video that where this young person told the mother, you know what really makes a difference in a child's education is not IQ, but it's family dinners. And that was brilliant, right? And I totally agree with that part of it on the surface. If I was a young person, I would look at that and say, that's right, Mom, family dinners. Not when you weren't around, not when I was left alone to watch TV and eat my dinner alone. That sounds so right. But then when I think about it, and I looked at my childhood, and I had a lot of meals by myself. And the reason why I had a lot of those meals by myself is because my parents were busting their backs making a living for me so that I could have food on the table and education. For all you young people out there who think that, oh, it's so sad, you know, I'm all alone, I have to eat dinner by myself. Chances are, for most of you, it was because your parents were working late. Am I excusing them for working late? No. Am I saying that you have to understand why they were working late? Yes. Because sometimes reality means that you might have to have dinner yourself because your parents were working to give you a living. So don't be the whiny little brat that complains and whinges that you have to eat alone when you know your parents are working for you. So what am I saying here? So here's the gist of the matter. I think as we progress, as we look for better ways of doing things, as we prepare ourselves for the future with new skill sets and new competencies, as we shift the way society runs so that we can get a better education system and we can get better engagement in the workplace and so on and so forth, there are some things that cannot be forgotten. There are some things where the individual has full responsibility, and that's your own life. Don't push away and relinquish the responsibility for your own life to somebody else. Just because the system doesn't support it doesn't mean you can't do anything about it. So the old school values, discipline, grit, determination, all these are and should be protected at all costs. It should be taught in our families, it should be taught in our education system, it should be taught at work, it should be taught for every individual out there. Because of what use is an individual who's totally intelligent but is unable to keep up and handle the stress of today's life, which is more stressful than ever. So do yourself a favor. Find those values. Speak to the people who have successfully made a living out of being resilient, out of being strong. Identify how they managed to do that, and then emulate that while you're picking up those new skills, while you're picking up those new competencies for the future. That way, you can be sure that you're going to have a balanced outlook, founded in the past but prepared for the future. So that's my take for today.